All right, everyone. We are back testing the RC four-wheel drive Interco Super Swamper TSL Thornbirds. These are in X2S3, a Class 2 475 size tire. It's actually 4.6. Extremely windy today. I am wearing a lapel mic. I'm trying to keep that in mind so I don't yell. But I'm unaware while I'm recording of how much the wind is affecting the audio. I'm also somewhat nervous about the camera tipping over, so let's see how today goes. Our first obstacle is Decide Hill. Today I am running Three Brothers 3D inserts and the Thornbirds. Of course, the RC four-wheel drive foams are trash. They're very, very, very hard. And we run a dual stage and everything anyway. Now, off the bat, side hilling, I'm seeing a lot of side slide with this tread or with this lug, which is not to be unexpected. This lug is fairly large and it's very close together, and so there's not a lot of traction to be had, I think, on the side hill. Right there, I'm going to roll out if I keep going because the rear end is just pushing the front. So we're going to take a little bit of a reverse. That front tire is collapsing quite a bit, even with that 3D insert in there. There we go. Able to reposition safely without too many issues and climb right up. Overdrive doing its job. The angle on this rock averages out to about 40 degrees. There's varying levels of steepness, steepidity. Let's call it steepidity because that's what an idiot would say. Depending on where you are on the rock, but it all averages out to about 40 degrees. And we are crawling on sandstone, so higher grip area. I can tell you right now, on a lower grip on a slicker rock, I don't think these Thornbirds would be doing very well. I think part of the issue we're seeing right now, I'm seeing a fair amount of side slide, and I believe that is just because we don't have a lot of spacing between the lugs, and we have, like, some of the lugs are very large or very long. So I think that that's not going to be very conducive to side hill grip. But it's not doing terribly. We're not able to take some of our steeper angles, but repositioning is working okay. Let's see if we can get up this way. I don't always drive this obstacle the same way, as I've said in some other videos. A lot of times testing a tire on an obstacle is learning how that tire needs to be driven on the obstacle. You can't drive every tire the exact same way and expect it to perform exactly the same. One thought process would be, well, that's going to be the most way to get a consistent result. That's the fairest way to measure one tire versus another. But I'm not necessarily trying to measure one tire versus another. Of course, I am keeping score. I do have a spreadsheet with some tires that score higher than others. So there is a little bit of that, but ultimately I'm trying to see how each tire performs and how can I make it perform to the best of its ability. So Thornbirds, that might be a rollout. I'm going to turn down a little bit. That front end slipping down. This area of the obstacle is about 43 degrees. And that front passenger side tire is getting ready to slip into that crevasse and give me some difficulty. So we're going to try to navigate around that, go slowly. There's not very much weight on that driver rear tire. We're going to try to avoid rolling out if we can. And if we can, I'm going to say that's a pretty good pass on this obstacle. So I started out doing just pass-fail. I actually do keep score. I'll find a way. Right now I'm going back after I record the video and rewatching it and kind of scoring it. I'm going to start keeping track of that as I go and writing it down as I go so I can give you a score at the time of the video. But it's a 1 through 5 basis, and there's 10 obstacles. Each obstacle is worth 5 points, and then I average it out at the end. So that's how I'll be scoring. I'll link the spreadsheet in the description of all these videos where you can actually just look up and see the tires that I've tested and what they scored. But I will start doing that while I'm out here and averaging them out and just giving the score at the end of the video. I know that'd be a lot better and easier. But I'm not ready to do that today. Having some trouble getting off the obstacle because I came off the wrong way. That's a driver issue, not a tire issue. But successfully able to get off. Let's see, how does it do on this loose rock down here? Loose dirt. Not bad, but not great. You know, the TSL Thornbird, what is this tire for? It's definitely some sort of a mud tire. And it is, I mean, this is a scale tire. This tire exists in the real world. But I'm not sure where this tire would actually excel in the real world. I don't think it's a rock crawling tire. I think it's more of a mud tire or a trail tire. But I'm not really sure what the Thornbird is claim to fame is. I'll need to look that up. Now we come up to wet or dry. And today we are very wet. The water level is up a couple feet in the lake. So we have to drive through water to get up to the obstacle. Come on. And we only have one entrance on the obstacle, which is our easy entrance, but also the tires are going to be wet. So I feel like that's a fair trade to get away from that hard entrance. So we'll see how the Interco TSL Thornbirds do when they're wet. Running that 3D foam in them, or 3D insert in them, I don't have to worry about drying out the foam afterwards, which will be nice. The other tires I've tested today, I've had to do that, or I will have to do that. So up onto the entrance, and now the goal is to traverse sideways over to the side, or optimally pull straight up, which we're kind of able to do. We're gonna have to use that side lug a little bit. Hope the camera not getting blown over here. Sorry guys, I know this isn't the best filming today. I'm kind of battling a lot of elements right now. Normally on this obstacle we do 3 passes. We do the easy line, the hard line, and then usually the easy line again. Today obviously the hard line is very much underwater, so we're not doing the hard line. But we'll do the obstacle twice, just to make sure that the first time wasn't a fluke. Not sure how much of the elements that this lapel mic is picking up, but this water, the waves are crashing into shore. The wind is blowing. Now I'm hung up on the front links. So I'm going to need to, yeah, there we go. Wheel speed, and we are safely off. I think I mentioned these are the X2S3 compound. RC four-wheel drive has several tire compounds. I think they have like 4 or 5, but their most common ones are X2S3 and X2SS, which X2S3 would pretty much be like their version of Proline G8, and X2SS would be their version of Proline Predator. Here, crawling on sandstone in the Midwest in Kansas, X2S3 generally works pretty well for me. I know a lot of people who crawl in other areas who don't have sandstone. What am I hung up on? I'm hung up on my links. There we go. But people who might be crawling on just, I don't know, rocks that are different from what I have here that are not as high grip. And they claim that X2S3 doesn't work well for them, but it works pretty well here. The Thornbird, definitely, again, I think this is more of a trail tire. It does have a thicker carcass. But so far, it's done what I've asked it to do. It side-hilled decently. It did the wet or dry. It completed that successfully, which the stupid boom racing aggressors couldn't do. But can it hook the edge and get up here? Still dealing with a little bit of wet tire, but the lugs are not loaded. Fortunately, we're not dealing with mud today. Might have to bump this. So it gets it with a bump, but it can't walk up it. So that's not great. And then we get to the side hill and get off the obstacle. The time of this recording, it is late March. We're kind of in early spring. And here in Kansas, we get some interesting weather. Tuesday, it was 75 degrees and sunny with very little breeze. Yesterday, it was 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and 45 degrees or colder. I think 45 was the high. I think most of the day it was in the 30s. Today, it's starting to get warm. Ooh, I've messed up this path. Hang on, I've got myself hung up. Temperature-wise, it's getting close to noon. We're finally getting up to about 55 degrees, but we're still dealing with some wind. Well, earlier this morning, we were dealing with a pretty steady 20-mile-an-hour blow with 40-ish mile-an-hour gusts. But right now, I think we're probably dealing with 30-mile-an-hour steady winds and a little bit stronger gusts. It's kind of miserable. It seems to be calming down for the moment. The lake definitely isn't raging the way it was a few minutes ago, but that wind makes this kind of miserable. It doesn't really affect the truck, but it affects the driver, and it affects my level of comfort just standing here. But if you're going to crawl outside and you're going to crawl in natural environments, and like me, if you are not at a point to where you can just pack up and go whenever you want to because you have other responsibilities such as a spouse and kids and other things going on, I schedule these trips in advance because I come out here for a weekend and camp, and I've just got to deal with however the weather is when I come out here. And being in Kansas, who the hell knows what the weather is going to do. All right, the goal of this obstacle, well, obviously the goal of any obstacle is to complete it. The difficulty with this obstacle that some tires face is right here, is getting that rear end pushed up and over. The tire that I tested previously to this one was another RC four-wheel drive tire, the Compass. It completed this whole course probably better than any tire that I've tested on camera so far. The Thornbird's not doing horribly, but definitely not one of the better, well, not one of the best showings, but they're doing pretty good. They're doing better than some others. Well, honestly, I'm a little bit shocked. I didn't expect a lot from this tire just from the tread pattern. Usually when you have big lugs like this and they're spaced closely together, you just don't get a whole lot of performance out of them. But those Three Brothers 3D inserts are definitely helping them out. And honestly, the tread is just kind of doing better than I thought it would do. The lug, I mean. Tread, lug, we're just going to use it interchangeably. Probably is an interchangeable term. So the goal here is for that rear end to slide just enough to let that front end down easily without just completely letting go and causing us to tumble. There we go. Did the job. We have one more challenge here. There we go. That was a good Good showing of the descent control. Descent control? Descent or descent? I think it's descent. Uh-oh. I've got myself in a pickle. Now I'm going to roll out, or it's going to roll. Gave it a reset because I'm pretty sure that was driver error. What I want to do, there we go. Good. And we have arrived at our most challenging obstacle on this course, if you want to call it that. Now the challenge here is we have to come up, and then we need to traverse to the right and hook the tire on the corner of that rock and kind of walk up the ledge. This rock is very steep. It is still sandstone, but it's pretty slick, and the surface is very uneven. It's very pocketed. And so this is a very hard obstacle. A lot of tires have challenges with this. The Thornbirds seem to be no exception to that. I am seeing some promise, but I don't know if they're going to have the forward drive necessary to really get up there. At least on low speed. We're going to try some throttle input here in just a second. Give it some wheel speed. Well, come on. Hook that edge. There we go. There we go. Thornbird's able to do a hard boy. I don't know what this obstacle is called. I don't have most of them named. If you think of names for any of these, leave me a comment and let me know what you think it should be called. The first one is the side hill, and the second one is wet or dry. But the rest of the 8, well, the last couple I've got a name for, but the majority of them I don't have named. I don't know if I need to have them named, but it's kind of fun. All right, so that was the first and second half of that obstacle completed successfully. Kind of got to keep score in 2 ways. The first being whether a tire is able to even complete the obstacle or not, and then the second being the score basically from 1 through 5 on how well it did. Again, I need to work out how I can get better about offering the actual score at the time of recording. Once I figure that out, I'll go through all the videos that I've already recorded and just append something to the end of them that has the score. But again, there will be the spreadsheet linked in the description below that will have the score of every tire I've tested if you want to compare them with one another. I must say today so far, I'm a little bit surprised at how well the Thornbirds are doing. I expected these to be a tire that looks really cool, but was absolute crap. And for me, on the surfaces that I crawl on, oh, hang on, I gotta keep the camera from falling over. That's a big wind gust. Oh, that's gotta be 50 miles an hour. Hold on, guys. All right, guys, sorry about that. For you, that was instantaneous, but for me, that was about a 10-minute pause. Had some really high wind come up there for a second, and then had some nice people out here who brought a RV with them who were walking their dog that I stopped and talked to for a little bit. The Thornbirds just completed this obstacle off camera, but we're going to do it again here. Hopefully. Watch it be one of those things they completed off camera and then they can't do it again. But as I was saying, I'm actually pleasantly surprised at the performance of these tires. I think I was saying this. It's been a break. I really thought they wouldn't be any good, but they're doing pretty well. Of course, those Three Brothers inserts are not hurting at all. They're really allowing the tire to conform to the surface of the rock, but holding the sidewall. But yeah, those went up very easily. Not quite as easily as like the Compass did, but easier than a lot of tires do. I'm really impressed with the rock crawling performance of these. I don't know how they'll do on the trails with the lug design being so close together, especially if you get into mud or something. Despite the fact that I believe this to be a mud tire in the one-to-one world, I think that they would get packed really easily and then kind of just be a slick. But so far on the rocks, I've been happy. One of the things that happens if you're on public land doing this kind of stuff is you will occasionally run into other people. Well, occasionally or frequently, I guess, just depending on where you are. I don't love it when it happens, but it's not a big deal. Most people are pretty nice. Most people think it's pretty cool. The RC cars and stuff. Not something that I think most people see a lot of. So when they see you driving, a lot of times they want to come talk. That's the part of it I don't love. It doesn't really annoy me from a standpoint of, having to talk to somebody. Although I'm not the most social person in the world. But it's just something that happens. So coming up here to the final part of our trail obstacle. And we are struggling. There we go. That's not because of the tire. That's because of the Colby driving. The idiot behind the wheel. Get set up here. And our camera's tipping over. There we go. Sorry about that. Okay, so get off this rock, onto this rock, and right up and over. No issues. No problem at all. Up and over. Now we go up the hill climb, the loose gravel hill climb. The goal is to get up it without having to use more than 40% throttle, but a lot of times tires have to use 100% throttle, especially on this 1200 kV motor. Thornbird's just digging into the ground, not finding grip. We're going higher throttle. There's 100%, and they're up with 100%. All right, so Thornbird's doing much, much, much better than I thought they would. I thought that I would be recommending these for if you drive on dirt paths and hiking trails. But for rock crawling, they did a really good job. All right, so as you can see, this is kind of what I was talking about with the lug design on them. I assumed that it would cause a lot more problems than it did. But for me, on the sandstone, on my not insanely hard, but not incredibly easy rock crawling course, these did really well. A little bit expensive. I think these are about $31 a pair. Then you need new foams because the foams they come with are really, really, really hard, which would be good for side hilling, but it would not allow the tire to conform like this does with the 3D inserts. But other than that, I mean, these are good. I would recommend these. These are going to score somewhere in the low 4s, I have a feeling, once I score them up. The Compass is going to be about a 4.6, 4.7. The next one would be the Power Hobby Armor, which was a 4.5. I think these will probably be around the 4.1, 4.2 mark. So not one of the higher scoring tires or highest scoring tires, but definitely one of the on the board right now from what I've tested on camera, definitely in the top 10. I mean, definitely in the top 3, really. So I'd definitely recommend them if you want to spend the money. They look awesome, and they did a good job. So until next time, have a good one, everybody.